Welcome to SACME 2026. My name is Gabrielle Kane. I've been a member for over 25 years, and the Society has been extremely important in my professional development, scholarship, and social life as well. Over the last few weeks, I've had the pleasure of interviewing some SACME members. You'll be meeting them on the screen over the duration of the meeting. Please thank them for their generous contribution of time and access to their memories and stories of SACME.
So, what's the best thing about SACME?
The people.
Yeah.
Definitely the people. The most astonishing group of people. Yes.
And I'll tell you a memory. Betsy, if she's there listening, will laugh at this. But we had just finished or partway through the Miami meeting, and she was just becoming president. This was before COVID. And Betsy dragged me outside to put our feet in the ocean. And as we literally took our shoes and socks off, and we were sitting there with our feet in the ocean. And Betsy looked at me and she said, "We're going to change everything." And I was like, "Really? Like everything?" Like, Betsy, that's a lot. And she said, "No, everything." And what Betsy didn't know, I think, is that everything was going to change. And that was, we couldn't have had a better president than Betsy, who cared for everybody through through the pandemic and was there and present. And she shifted everything she wanted to do and said the one thing we have to do is take care of people. And that's what SACME does, is it takes care of its people.
Drinking with Tim and a couple of people from my office and Simon Keto. And I have to say, like, the conversation ranged from just sort of general conversational shenanigans to like deep educational theory and back, right? And so it was a tremendous amount of fun, and probably like if you could record and bottle that session, right? Like it would be like one of the best educational sessions you could introduce someone to.
Miami. I think it was a Miami meeting.
Okay.
And that's when I started. And before Pam, the gentleman that was the president before Pam.
Uh-huh.
And I think they had invited me to help do the editing of the newsletter.
Uh-huh.
And then after a week, I think he emailed me back and forth because he had some ideas. And then we were going to do a survey about something. And then a week later, I got a call from Pam saying that, oh, he passed away, but we would still like you to come on. Can you become a secretary? And I was in shock, but I was also elated to be able to be in a position to help SACME.
Gordon West was the president after me in SACME. We'd built up quite a friendship. We were both from the West Coast. We had to go to a lot of meetings on the East Coast. Inevitably, we ended up sitting out the same delays due to weather or cancellations. And it gave us lots of time to compare stories growing up. Very different lives, his in northern Florida and mine in London. His childhood sounded really very idyllic to me. Mine was very old-fashioned by comparison. What I really did lust after was a yellow frilly party dress, just like my friend had. I only had dresses that my mother made for me. Well, a few days after this conversation, I got a gift in the mail of a Cinderella in a yellow party dress. She sat on the edge of my computer for years, and in fact still does. I have to put her away when my grandchildren come because I don't want her getting broken or lost.
Like you, I have attended hundreds of meetings, some of them recurrent over the course of a career, and SACME has been one of my favorite meetings, recurring meetings to attend.
And the hotel was rather on the small side from what we normally have. So everyone that was there had to gather in the lobby slash bar slash restaurant. And so every evening it was like its own little party. You got to see everybody all at once. We got to have big tables of people, like 10 people just sitting around waiting to go to dinner. And it probably isn't the most fun I've ever had, but it was the most impactful because I met so many people and got close to a lot more people that I now consider not only colleagues but
Somebody
friends.
said to me, I don't know who it was. Somebody said to me, oh, I know who it was. It was probably Marty Schickman, who was very, very involved in SACME and said, well, you need to join the Society for Academic Continuing Medical Education, which was probably one of the best things I ever did.
I've had many fun moments, Gabrielle and SACME. So what I would say, um, one of the conferences that stood out for me was San Diego because I think there was a bar and a lounge in the main lobby. And what I enjoyed the most is attending the sessions there, but at every break or every kind of moment after, just being able to connect with people who had dropped by and the friendliness and just having a beverage or a small snack together and just laughing about our journeys, both professionally and personally.
The other thing I think is special is it goes back to what I said before, the nurturing of people when we had the small grants to try and get people started. And I remember this was at the Amy meeting, and Sophie, I had never met Sophie before, and I was at the Amy booth, and we just started talking. And I said, "Oh my God, you have to apply for the Manning." And the deadline was like really quick, like, I don't know, in just a few days for the LOI. And I said, no, you have to do it. You have to do it. And then she did it, and she got a small grant, and so much wonderful came out of that. So I just keep going back to the people. I'm sorry. It's just.
Yeah. The only reason I'm doing this.
Initially, when I came into SACME, I was very nervous because it's such a tight-knit family, and sometimes smaller groups can be perceived as cliquish, like you don't want to like insert yourself into an already established family. So I was extremely nervous, but I can honestly say that the group has been welcoming from the very beginning, professionally and personally, and it has been a truly valuable experience to be able to have expertise at my fingertips and to be able to just either jump on the coffee chat or pick up the phone or shoot an email when I'm kind of pondering something or stuck, and be able to reach out to people who guide me through the process. It's been amazing.
What way has SACME helped you with your job?
Wow. When I started in this role about 16 years ago, I was active in CME, but only for a department within the university. And and went to the Alliance every year, occasionally went to ACCME. And when I took this role in the dean's office and was in charge of all continuing education on campus, my colleagues instantly were like, you need to join SACME. And I had literally worked in this role for 3 months and went to my first SACME meeting, which was also a lot of fun. And that was at the Eisenhower Center. And it was hosted by UCLA. So I already knew the players. And I was just stunned by rubbing elbows with people who've written the books on what we do. And how nice they were, and how humble they were, and how helpful they were. And meeting other colleagues that I don't even always see at the Alliance every year because it's so large, but we had this small, intimate crowd and a nice rooftop reception. And I got to know so many people, and I just like I'd been there 2 days and I was so nervous. I even went to a research committee meeting and I'm like, I have no idea what these people are talking about. And they didn't care. And but it was just so homey. I mean, it just felt like this is I have something to learn here that I don't always have something to learn at other meetings. And I have to say over the years it has really kind of come of age in my CME career as a result of SACME, that I've just really felt like people are always kind of pulling you up. And even when you don't know it. So just the formal and informal mentorship and friendship has just been phenomenal
Had
for
a
me.
lot of very engaging sessions. And
Yeah.
I think there's, the work in AI that a lot of people are in tuned with or at least interested in is another, opportunity for SACME and
It really does
research.
illustrate that the learning it just doesn't come at you from a PowerPoint or a podium, but it comes from the people you're sitting beside and all around the place, all around the place.
SACME is the organization that thinks about the future. And it's always exciting conversations. It's always pushing the envelope. And so I guess why wouldn't I be part of SACME? I think that's really, for me, the question. It's been so important to my career and it sparks the imagination, keeps us connected, and it has real purpose.
In general, I think that SACME is a wonderful society. I would welcome anybody, even if they're not interested in education, they will be when they get there.
My first few years in SACME, I was, listening and just trying to take it all in and figure out my place and learn and all that sort of stuff. So I was giving my first presentation and I wasn't all that nervous per se because I had done enough presentations not to be, nervous or flustered. But I remember there was this guy, slight of build, glasses, ponytail, sitting in the front row. And I remember he listened very intently to what I was saying. And then we had the Q&A when we were done, and he came up to me afterwards, and what followed was like an hour conversation of incredibly thoughtful questions. And Paul being Paul, it was about the theory underlying pieces and what he saw as sorts of vision and places I could go with this, trying to be, and he was incredibly helpful. And so that's one of those instances that I think typifies SACME, at least for me, and what I tell others is that you have these luminaries in the field that are very approachable, very willing to help young and up and coming folks. And not only was that helpful intellectually, but it became the beginning of a colleagueship and a friendship that led to the story that I told earlier, amongst other sorts of collaborations throughout the course of the years. And that is crystal clear. And I can even remember the setup of the room where I was speaking, where the projector was, where Paul was, and the window in the background where the ski lift was. And sort of, and it's one of those really vivid memories that I have of a particular event.
So actually, the other thing that's really near and dear to my heart about SACME is the way we do conferences. And actually, you may remember, really early on, you were the head of the then research committee when I had to give a paper. And you were so kind to me and just told me to relax and enjoy it. And I have found that SACME is a wonderful place for me to bring my students who have never done a presentation before, because it is such a welcoming and supporting community. So I'm sure we all know sometimes you can go to meetings and people cannot provide feedback in the most helpful way. And at SACME, I've always felt like the feedback that people have provided has been very mindful and intentional and in aid of growth and development, which I really appreciate.
Things the way they are and budget cuts and travel, we're all grounded here. I had to basically, beg, borrow, and steal to be able to get to Lexington this year. But they're like, okay, you can do one meeting, not four. And I'm like, well, this is the one.
So the reason I keep coming back and being part of SACME simply is it feeds my soul. Uh, you know, the amazing people, what we're trying to do. And I think what I've come to understand is, the value of CPD and what we can do to really help the evolution of the practice of medicine and other health professions. Like, this is it. This is the place.
I would say, for me, I think the connection at SACME is quite unique in that there's a diverse perspective of expertise in CPD and CME across such a range of disciplines. Um, and I have to say, I'm going to say this in a time where this may not be applicable. It's actually definitely not applicable in other settings. A Canadian coming to a US conference in this way, although SACME has grown to be much more than a North American conference with its membership.
Yeah.
But I would say it had a different type of feel between our collaborations between a Canadian and a US kind of organization. And I do think because there is some grassroots and such collective generosity in that organization, that it is so inviting for an international, I consider Canadians international, international attendee. And so I just would highlight there's a secret sauce to SACME in that way that maybe in our current state, a lot that our countries could learn from, actually.
SACME has allowed me to grow that curiosity researcher side of me more so than other places, in a very safe, friendly, inviting, supportive community, which is really nice.
And it sparks the imagination, keeps us connected, and it has real purpose.
I have to say, I agree with you. I keep thinking, yes, I keep thinking, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with SACME, and then I get sucked back in or lured back in, and
Yes.
realize, oh gosh, my brain is on fire again.
It just saved me so many times when something new was coming down the pike, or something new regulation from the ACCME, or somebody said, well, justify the reason for having CME in our office or in our organization, or the myriad questions that came, and I just always had a cadre of people that I could ask. And Todd Dorman was one of those from Johns Hopkins. Todd, how do you do this? Then I could come back and say, well, Johns Hopkins does this. And, that had some credibility.
It's kind of my academic family. So we all have our personal family. SACME is a different and very special kind of family.
Yes, it certainly is. And I mean, I've been members of lots of professional organizations, and I've made good pals, but maybe not such good friends.
Yes, and so what's really astonishing and what drew me is they help you and support you and nourish you intellectually and academically, but they're also there and support you and hold you if there are other things going on in your life. It's just a wonderful group of people.
I actually didn't even understand what CME was really all about until I got into Dave Davis's net. Like a little fish, getting caught in a net. How does SACME dovetail with all your other hats?
SACME has been really very, very important, and still is very, very important for me. I like to consider SACME as a home for me, where I was able to grow and not feel that lonely sometimes. It's a small world, and sometimes we all work in a small organization with our work within our respective organizations, should I say? And it's hard to find a place where you can grow and share interest and something that you do with others. And
Yeah.
SACME has been for me, really a place where to grow and to meet people.
There aren't many very friendly societies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. So,
When it's that whole looking for power thing, or my face is more important than your face.
mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right. There's not, I have not sensed that. I've always sensed that people, regardless of title, position, experience, we always, we talk lovingly about superstars, but they don't have that aura where they're, no one's better than anyone. We're literally all in this together.
I think what always stands out with SACME is the fact that it was a much smaller meeting. So you feel like you were part of a family, like part of a group that has real meaning because it was because of the smallest of it. And you learn more because you were able to network, you have a closer relationship with people. And I think that's kind of what attracted me to
I'm
SACME.
interested in making new friends who are really worthwhile making join SACME.
I think that I often learned more in those times when we were sitting around drinking wine and chewing the fat.
Yeah.
And that's when I think I had most of my aha moments. I think I listened to all sorts of wonderful talks, but I'm not sure that many of them gave me true aha moments. But what they did do is sort of put bits of the jigsaw in place. So, what appeals to you most about SACME?
I think for me, it's been the community, right? So I was told when I took on this role, well, you need to be part of SACME. And I was like, okay. So I went to my first meeting. And at the time, my associate director was a long-term SACME member and kind of handed me off to Tim because he was on the board, right? And was like, all right, look out for my new director, right? And then at the first session, I sat next to Edeline.
Yes.
Right. And so, right, these are still people I talk to today. And it's been lovely. And then Pam McFadden, right, I still get to enjoy her company every now and then when she comes around. It kind of taken me under her wing a little bit. And so I think the conversations I had with these people were more instrumental to me being able to do this role than any lecture or continuing professional development I got that was sort of in a formal way.
As far as catapulting the careers, it's been largely about the people I've met, yourself included, but the people I've met along the way, the opportunity to work with people on various projects, but also get to know people as individuals and in many cases friends. A sense of support, learning formally through some of the sessions, but equally if not more important, learning informally through the side conversations, sometimes social events, sometimes coffee breaks, sometimes at posters. It's those sorts of relationships that have grown over the years that have really helped me feel supported in my CPD career, but also grow as a CPD professional, if I could use that term.
Yeah. It's also a very friendly group, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. All of them. There's something in the air. I don't know when you sign up as a member. And it must be something. When you click, you become just friendly. I don't know. But this is a common theme that everybody, is so welcoming. And I think this is also because it's a small organization that feels, that it's easy, I guess, to connect with people. And I always found myself to be surrounded by very caring people.
Well, first, let me just say that it was such a delight. So many people that I met were wonderful, but the opportunity to meet people and to get to know well people like Dave Davis, like Paul Mesmanian, and Don Moore. I mean, this is the famous Don Moore.
I know.
And to see that they were lovely and that they knew who I was and that they, were welcoming and helpful, all wonderful
Over a
things.
decade ago, I was one of my first SACME meetings
Mhm.
and coming by myself to present a poster. I only stayed a few days because I had to go to another conference after. I think people like yourself and Tanya Horsley and um, uh, I'm thinking about others as well. Betsy, Mary, a whole group who said, "Who is this young lost soul?" Who was younger at that time, so I don't think that would apply now. Uh, Walking around, he seems enthusiastic and he's presenting. And then this real kind of selflessness to kind of bring me in to explain to me what SACME is about and then really introduce me to the people of SACME and that generosity and that excitement for this type of work that often is part of medical education that doesn't get a lot of airtime or focus. Seeing people in my community like who were doing stuff that I was so interested in doing, and also people I read about too, that I read their papers and their textbooks as well. It was a bit awe-inspiring, but also so friendly and down to earth, which was really so nice.
SACME has been one of my favorite meetings, recurring meetings to attend. As far as catapulting the careers, it's been largely about the people I've met, yourself included, but the people I've met along the way, the opportunity to work with people on various projects, but also get to know people as individuals and in many cases friends.
Mhm.
A sense of support, learning formally through some of the sessions, but equally if not more important, learning informally through the side conversations, sometimes social events, sometimes coffee breaks, sometimes at posters. It's those sorts of relationships that have grown over the years that have really helped me feel supported in my CPD career, but also grow as a CPD professional, if I could use that term.
Academia is very challenging to navigate. And so having an organization that can help health systems and specialty societies and academic medical centers and those of us in those spaces navigate those spaces more effectively and have a voice in those spaces is really
The
great.
very first things that you dragged me to was way back when you and Todd were chairing State of the Future of CME CPD. And that must have been, I don't know, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And off I went and I met all kinds of amazing people, including Barbara Barnes and others. And it sort of opened my eyes. I think it was the CPD consensus meeting. I think that's what the Mayo consensus meeting.
Mayo consensus meeting.
And it really opened my eyes to the amazing world of CPD and the fantastic people who were part of it. And that will stick with me for a long time. That was amazing.
And I mean, I think one of the wonderful, one of the great things, and then one of the strengths and one of the weaknesses of SACME, I suppose, is its size, and it's a lovely, lovely size for networking, for meeting people, for forming deep relationships. But it needs to be a little bit bigger to bring in more ideas and more colleagues and for financial sustainability. And so it's a little bit of a conundrum there.
Moss, he
Yes.
hired you.
Yes.
Mosh is a big buddy of mine. We did all sorts of work together.
Awesome. And I think that's how I became familiar with your name,
Uh-huh.
and also seeing it in the world, the CME CPD world as well. But I just, Moss is and has always been a great mentor. So anytime he could pull us in as a team to share his work or just to offer guidance or just being a great mentor, we were always looped in.
Yeah, SACME, I do think of people like Paul. I think of people like Don Moore, Joan. I mean, just these amazing luminaries, Dave Davis, and kind of like your experience. I just remember being at maybe my second SACME meeting, and I said to Paul, I had this idea for a paper about underperforming physicians. And he was like, oh, yeah, come talk to me about that. And then he was so helpful and supportive. Same thing with Dave. I had some ideas about aging physicians, and he just so welcoming, so willing to provide assistance. It's really, it goes across. Same thing with John. I mean, it just goes through the entire society, I think.
I was in a meeting and I was presenting my things, right? And then Betsy come to me and said, oh, this is fantastic work. Betsy, this is great. You should get involved in one of our committee. And then next to her was Michael, her husband. And then Michael said, be careful. If you listen to her, you'll end up in all these committees.
SACME has done a lot for my CV. Thank you, SACME.